Okay, we are ready whenever you are.
Hi.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. There we go. I hope I didn't. There we go. So, Katie, I have a favor to ask since Jessica is on vacation. If you wouldn't mind signing my travel log, sure, which you would sign right there.
Okay.
And I can take that to Kyle.
And it is 6:29.
That's why I wanted to get it in
Yes.
today.
Yeah, and it's year end too, so thank you.
Do you know how many folks we're expecting?
So this is all that I have that RSVP'd except for Major Driscoll said that he was going to stop by at some point.
Okay,
And so Matt is recording, so it will be available to all participants.
so would you like me to begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my name is Donna Trilio, and I'm not quite sure where to stand. Because I don't know that I need to be in the video.
We want you to be in the video.
I mean, if you want me to, I can change my position to down there.
I will leave that up to you.
Whatever you want to do, really.
Okay. You never know, I might become undercover at some point, and I say that because we had CIA at our CIT training, and some of them allow photographs and some don't, and even with drug task force that might come through CIT, you know, they don't want to be photographed because we
Right.
post it on our Facebook page
Right.
because we're proud
Sure.
of that. So
Yeah, I guess that you have to watch that.
yes, exactly. So as I mentioned, I'm Donna Trilio with Northwestern Community Service Board, and I am the CIT coordinator and CTAC supervisor. So what I'm going to go over today as an overview is CIT, what it is, historical background of the program. I'm going to talk about a little bit about CTAC, and I have some notes here to keep me on track, and the training program. I also brought some handouts that I will leave here for you guys, and then you know, you can distribute them to different agencies if they would like some. So that's out of the way. So just to start with CIT, one of the things I've learned from being at the hospital, working with hospital staff, working with law enforcement, we have so many acronyms, and we forget that people don't know what those stand for. So CIT is Crisis Intervention Team. And it is a model that was developed in the early 80s because of an incident that happened. And that's kind of the way it is, that, you know, we're kind of reactive. And there was a individual who had schizophrenia, and he had a mental health crisis. And unfortunately, the outcome was that he was fatally shot by law enforcement. And he had a weapon, and it was a big call out. So it, you know, was devastating to the family, the community, and law enforcement. And I think people sometimes forget the impact it has on law enforcement because these are human beings as well. So they decided they had to figure out a different way to respond. And so they called the community together. They had mental health professionals, they had hospital folks, they had community members, they had educational people from, you know, local colleges, and that's how they developed the CIT model. So they had church officials, and the whole goal was to figure out a new approach, a new way to intervene that would keep everybody safe. So the main objectives that they came with originally were to facilitate changes in law enforcement policy and procedures in regards to mental health, because they didn't really have a lot prior to that. They also wanted to reduce the risk of danger posed to persons who are in a mental health crisis, as well as law enforcement. They wanted to divert those folks from jail into treatment if possible. Health treatment, mental health treatment facilities in lieu of incarceration. That's really like, if you hear people out in the community, you hear law enforcement talk, they say CIT is a jail diversion program, because even today, our folks end up in jail. Jail has been the de facto mental health facility, and they're not really going to get treatment there. They may get medication management, but that's one of the biggest proponents of CIT is jail diversion. It's also to decrease the trauma and stigma associated with law enforcement contact and criminal justice involvement, because statistically, if somebody is introduced to the criminal justice system, it increases the likelihood there's going to be a second one. And if there's a second one, it increases, so we're trying to break that cycle. And it's also to increase law enforcement awareness of mental health, because they're not trained in it. So how do we do that? We do that by offer CIT training. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about Northwestern's program. So in 2008, Dennis Vaughn, who was with Emergency Services, he was a pre-screener. He applied for a grant, and at the time it was called the Burn Grant, and I believe that grant still exists, but it targets different things in the criminal justice system. So they were going to award different programs grant money to start a CIT program, and we were one of the recipients. So Dennis Vaughn, a few people here, 2 Winchester police officers went to New River Valley, which is the kind of the gold standard for CIT in the state of Virginia. They went there and they became trained, and then they came back and started working on our program late 2008, and 2009 we officially started. That's when I was hired. I was hired under that grant, and I'm so happy to say I'm still here. Because that doesn't always happen with grants. So I'm so proud of this program. I'm so honored to be part of this program. But that's how it started. So it started with kind of a small staff. We actually, I think you all may know our catchment area. It's Page, Shenandoah, Warren, Frederick, Clark, and the city of Winchester, all the little towns within. So we are tasked with providing training to all of those law enforcement agencies. So it's roughly 2 Virginia State Troop Barracks, Area 13 and 14, 6 sheriff's offices, which includes the city of Winchester. They have a sheriff's office, and 18 law enforcement, police departments. Some of them have 2 police officers or 3, which would be like Stanley or Shenandoah. All the way up to, I guess Winchester would have the most police officers. And of course, I think Frederick County probably has the most deputies. So that's a lot of folks that we're responsible for training. So like I said, we started in 2009. We had about, I think we had 1 training that year. The next year it was 2. Then it went into 3, and I wanted to bring this as a visual. So this was our second training, right? A handful. It was very difficult to get law enforcement buy-in at first. This was probably 2018. And you can see it's a lot different. We do 5 trainings a year now, consistently. We've done 6 sometimes. And we usually have a train the trainer. We actually did 2 dispatch trainings this year. So the demand has increased. So of course, our objective is the same as the CIT Coalition, which is, jail diversion, but also hospital diversion too, if it's possible. And of course, we do this through the CIT training. Sure, I hit. One of the other things that our program does, and COVID really put a wrench in it, what I'm doing now is a big part of CIT, is educating the community. Because CIT isn't just a collaboration between law enforcement and mental health. It is a community model. So that means educating and working with not just schools and social services. It's going to the library and doing education for presentations for their staff, CCAP, just different agencies. And the reason why is so that, CIT is about allowing our folks that have serious mental illness to live in their community and thrive in their community. So the more that we can educate people about CIT and break down stigma, then it's, we'll all be working together so that some of our clients are comfortable going to Sharp Shopper. The people at Sharp Shopper are familiar with them. It's things like that. That's a huge goal. And I think we, sometimes we forget that we want to pigeonhole it, that it's just law enforcement and mental health, but it's everybody. So to that end, we go to first night. I try to hit as many as I can. We're going to be doing Douglas Family Day in Winchester, which is a community event. We do the Woodstock Safety Fair. We go to the mall for the health clinics, just things like that, just to make people more aware of CIT. And, we have that engagement with the public to hand out pamphlets. This is a pamphlet developed for the community so that they know if they have somebody a family member that has a mental health crisis, or a neighbor or whatever, they know they can call a CIT officer, because we've trained over 500 law enforcement officers. So that means even in Stanley, there is a CIT officer, right? Sergeant Good. Even in Shenandoah, Little Shenandoah, every municipality has CIT officers. And they are dedicated, they love what they do, and it changes the experience for the family, and it changes the experience for the individual with serious mental illness. That interaction will increase the likelihood that the next time that person might voluntarily go to the hospital, or they might choose a different resolution to their crisis instead of calling law enforcement, or they're more comfortable calling law enforcement because of that. So I'm going to leave these here with you all. So let's talk a little bit about the training program. And if you have any questions at any point, just stop me. The training program. It is a 40-hour week of education. We do peer perspective. There's a lot that goes into that. So much so that what I brought with me is the schedule, just so you can have an idea of, and I'll leave these too, of what law enforcement goes through. So we typically shoot for like 16 to 18 law enforcement officers. They're going to come from all over. When I say all over, I guess what I mean to say, they're going to be officers, police officers, deputies, command staff, which would be lieutenants, sergeants. We have chiefs.
Jail staff too, correct?
Absolutely. We have correctional staff. RSW and NRADC have done a wonderful job of embracing this program. They definitely see the efficacy of having their staff trained. And what I have found from doing trainings, I've done every training since the very first one. I have not missed one training, which I'm really proud to say that too. What I've noticed when we get to the role plays and the de-escalation, the jail staff knocks it out of the park because they live with those folks. They have already.
It's an everyday thing for them. I
Yes.
come from NRDC.
Oh, so you know.
Yeah,
They
and
live with these folks, so they learn how to talk, and they all, since they see them every day, they see them as people.
oh
They
yeah,
see them, how hard it is for them. The challenges they have adapting to going into a jail, even if they've been there several times, just the emotional and mental and physical impact it has on them. So the jail staff really, like, the role players try to amp it up a little bit, but they do such a good job, it's almost impossible to, because we're not, let's see, how do I want to articulate this? So when you look at the schedule, we have role plays on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So at lunchtime, our instructors come in, they're law enforcement instructors. We have 2 Northwestern staff besides myself that are trained, which would be Kathy Offerman and Jessica Craybill. So we come in, we sit down. Our law enforcement instructor or coordinator for the week has already looked at the role plays. He's usually selected them, or she, because it could be male or female, has already selected. That might be on his end. Have already selected the role plays. And I prefer to allow law enforcement to partner the students because it's law enforcement, but we, at lunchtime, we look at them, we plan them out, and I'm like, okay, role players, what is your role? Do you have your script together? And what is our goal? Our goal is to make our students succeed. We're not there to embarrass anybody. Because some of these guys know each other, like, oh man, I want to be in this role play. You're not going to be in that role play. It's not play. We want them to get some good skills, feel comfortable, because they're in front of all their peers as well. So that's another piece of it. But getting back to the actual schedule, there is this schedule. The curriculum was developed by the Virginia CIT Coalition. And it has, it's law enforcement and mental health professionals that put this together. And there are core modules that we have to teach. So 75% of this is going to be standard across the state of Virginia. So if a Winchester PD officer goes to James City County, then she's been trained in the same curriculum. We have about 25 to 30% that we can add in because every region is different. So Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads, they're gonna have a lot more maybe military focused things. And we do have a veterans block because that is, that's something we have to have. But there could be, depending on the area. And you'll see that the first few days, there's a lot of education, a lot of mental health, and it kind of segues more into the law enforcement stuff as we move through. So there's definitely a method to the madness. And that's what we tell the students because they're looking at this going, oh my God, death by PowerPoint is what they say. But it's not. I think it's a really well done curriculum. The Department of Criminal Justice has around 2015 gotten more involved, and now we have their stamp of approval as well. I have to do a lot of paperwork in December and submit lesson plans, new bios for instructors, things like that, so that we can give the students in-service credit, which they have to do every year. Like some of us in the room have to continue to get continuing education credits, right? So does law enforcement.
To be CIT
Yes.
certified?
Yep.
How many do they need each year after they get the initial?
Well, the state is still working on that. We've done one refresher in 2018, Northwestern hosted it. There was another one in Harrisonburg, but it only had a handful of people, but they're trying to standardize that as well. DCJS and the Virginia Coalition is trying to put together a refresher course. Mm-hmm. Like every 2 years, you're going to have to go back through it. It's probably going to be an 8-hour thing. We'll focus on changes in the mental health code and then role plays. We actually, we're going to put one together sometime in July. We're going to start working on it. And we're probably going to start with Strasburg. The way I'm seeing it is go to Strasburg, have an 8-hour day with them, then go to Winchester. Instead of having a great big thing, because it didn't seem to go well that way. But anyway, one of the new changes we did just this past June, because Chief Rinker and Chief White thought this would be a good idea. Our students during role plays wear a training gun now to make it more realistic for them and to help them, because they're going to be more aware. Because when we're talking about de-escalation, or when we're talking about clinical states and things, we want to emphasize to them just going like this can seem threatening to someone. And so we have a critique panel with role plays. That's something the law enforcement officer can point out because they may not be aware of it, or putting their hands, hear things like that. And in our role plays on June, we had 2 officers that actually pulled their guns, which is okay because this is role play. We can, is it appropriate, not appropriate? All of, with all of those elements there. So it's a safe environment. We can process these things. It went really, really well. Really pleased with how our program continues to evolve to make it as realistic and as beneficial to law enforcement as possible. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the role play. About training. And I've got some of these things to hand out with you as well, like the state objectives within the training objectives. One of two things that are really important with training. One is to break down the stigma, to help identify stigma, implicit bias with law enforcement. And we do that a couple ways. One is we have a peer come in and present, and law enforcement sees people on their worst day. Law enforcement sees, some tough stuff. They don't get to see people in recovery. They don't get to see people doing well. So the peer specialist comes in and tells their story. This peer specialist might have been in jail. They might have lost their children. They might have relapsed 10 times. But here they are 4 or 5, 6 years later, gotten custody back, have a job, working for Northwestern, giving back to the community. So that starts to kind of right their perspective, because their perspective does get distorted because of,
Oh, absolutely. When you see the same people come in and out of jail.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm going to do good. And then they come back 2 weeks later.
Yes.
Or I'm taking my meds. And then they stop taking their meds.
yes,
Seeing people that are medicated for their mental health issues and doing well. Like, I've worked in the jail for 6 years and I just came to juvenile probation. So seeing, the ones in jail that are like, I'll see you one day and I'm going to do good. And then actually seeing that
yes.
is like a breath of fresh air.
Isn't that amazing?
It's because the jail is nothing but a mental health hospital. And, in perspective, like, it's terrible. But seeing the ones that actually take their meds and, follow up with their counseling and do what they're supposed to do is amazing. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, especially to the ones that you didn't think it would happen to,
Yes.
is amazing.
We've had 3 peers come through the CIT program, like the training, and then present. And it is amazing, to hear their stories, the fact that there were multiple incarcerations, multiple suicides attempts, hospitalizations, and yet they've reached this place of being stable, and it's so good for correctional officers and law enforcement to see this. The other thing that we do is we visit one of Northwestern's PSRs, which is a psychosocial rehabilitative center. They're called clubhouses. And the clubhouse is run by the members, which are people with serious mental illness. The model says you should be able to walk in and not be able to tell who's Northwestern staff and who's a member. Because of regulations and stuff, we have to wear our badges. So you can, but that's another, that's a day that we see what we call voluntold. They're made to go to CIT training. They think it's hug-a-thug class. They don't want to be there. We see them change. So I bring in a thank you card on Wednesday or Thursday, and I'm like, you guys, you don't have to sign this, but if you'd like to thank them for the lunch because they feed us, and thank the people that shared their story or walked around, please do. Everybody always signs it. But we spend like 90 minutes there. And so I also not warn them, but I let them know, you may see somebody that you have taken to jail. You may see somebody that you see in jail because you're RSW. You know, you may see someone that you see on the street. These are human beings. This is your opportunity to say hi to them, have a different interaction. So those two modules really help break down the stigma. They start that process. And then other things we do during the week, you know, move down that path even farther. And then with the role plays, I think that they start to get it. Something I thought about with who comes to CIT. CIT is a law enforcement training. So it's going to be law enforcement, it's going to be correction officers, it's going to be probation officers. Anytime probation wants to come, dispatch. We usually put a Northwestern CPSC in it, which is a pre-screener. Unfortunately, we've been kind of short-staffed, so we haven't been able to have one in the class. But when we have a pre-screener in the class, it is amazing because then, you know, there's conversations that go on, informal conversations that bring us closer together, you know, in regards to law enforcement and the pre-screeners, because they don't always agree on the end of the ECO process, you know.
Especially when they've been sitting up there for.
Exactly.
so long.
Exactly right. So you know, some of the benefits of Northwestern's CIT program is our relationships with law enforcement have really expanded. The fact that we have chiefs that are part of our team, you know, sheriffs that are role players, we get, you know, those relationships have grown, and it's because of CIT. They see the benefit of it. They see how it works in their community, how the community receives it. You know, the other thing is that the education that we provide in regards to the pre-screener process and mental health code, because you'll see that's on there as well, and legal liability, you know, reminds all of us that we each have our part and we're on the same team. We're on the same team. And if you disagree with me, okay, let's talk about it and figure something out. So those have been wonderful benefits that I've witnessed and observed over the 13 years that I've been here. That's really been awesome. And of course, I get all the evaluations. I got a couple emails today that were just, it's the best part of my day to get an email from an officer that was in the class that said, wow, it's not what I thought it was going to be. It was really good. So do you have any questions about the training? I think.
How often do you do it, Donna, again?
We do 5 a year. So we have, and we train in different locations to make it easier for law enforcement. So we do one in Woodstock. So it's easy for Page County and Shenandoah County to come to that training. That's the April one. June, we either do it Lord Fairfax Community College or we do it the Academy, both in Middletown. We do one in August, either at NRADC or RSW. So this year it's NRADC. Last year it was NRADC. The year before it was RSW. Then they kind of figure out who, you know, which one is going to host it. And of course, we try to, whether it's RSW or NRADC, we try to have, you know, an equal amount of slots for both facilities. Page County Jail also sends officers to those trainings as well. And then September is at the Academy in Middletown. And then November's training is usually at Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
There's one here, right?
Every Tuesday we come here. We come here, every CIT training, we're here on Tuesdays.
Oh,
because
right.
we visit our families right back here.
Got it.
So Andrea and I worked that out, and that we just started doing that because prior to that, Tuesdays, we would drive down to Western State Hospital. We would start our day there.
Wow.
And we do a tour. We'd get to meet some clients that were getting ready to be discharged so they could hear their stories. We'd meet the forensic staff so they could talk about the process. How do you get in? What happens when folks are there? What do you do? What do they do? We talk about NGRI.
Yeah.
Now, because of COVID, that stopped.
I bet that was very interesting. I know it's a long drive.
It is a long drive.
was-
Yep. And that's something we're hoping to get back to in 2023. It's going to be challenging because we now have PowerPoints that happen, and that'll end up being like a 10-hour day, but we'll figure it out. That's something I'll have to do by myself. That's why it's so wonderful to have a team. So Tuesdays we come here. I know what it was. The second part that I'm proud of, besides breaking down the stigma, is we focus on officer wellness now. And we've been hitting that hard for about 5 years.
That's awesome because the mental health stigma also in law
Yes.
enforcement is super strong.
Well, law enforcement has higher rates of suicide. They have higher rates of substance use. They have higher rates of divorce than the general population.
My dad was a law enforcement officer that committed suicide in 2007.
Oh,
So I'm
Lord.
super, don't apologize, but I'm super like big on the mental health.
We have 3 hours. We do 2 hours. We have 4 hours now that I think about it. So Chris Rinker, who's chief of Newmarket, does a 2-hour block called Who Takes Care of You? So he addresses all of those issues. He tells his personal story, and he shares the fact that he was like this guy in class when he came through, and how it's changed. And now he takes medication. He permission to say it's okay not to be okay. You just can't stay there. You can stay there for a while, but you got to do something. So we address that. And then on Friday, we have Sergeant Rudnick that comes from the state of Maryland.
I heard he is amazing.
He is amazing.
My mother-in-law took the CIT class. She works for Old Dominion Court Services.
Oh, what's her name?
Cheryl Watson.
Oh, yeah.
That's my mother-in-law. So she took it, well, I guess last year, and she ranted and raved about him.
Yeah.
She said he was fabulous.
Because he's had to kill some folks. And one of them, a couple of them were suicide by cops. And I met him in 2012 at the international conference, and a Winchester PD officer and I were like, he's in Maryland. What if he'll present for us? And that man has not missed one training. Now, he just retired and he got a new job. This might be our last year with him.
Oh.
But he is amazing, but he also gives police officers permission. It is okay if you've got to go see a therapist, because what we see is not normal. It's not normal. And, and it's okay to have, those are appropriate responses, It's just amazing that that we have the people that we come in that, and that it's acceptable now in that culture to seek help.
Because it's not always been like that. And it's still a lot, like you ask a lot of the older guys and they're like,
Oh, yeah.
it's a lot of the younger ones.
Yep.
Definitely that are more on board with it.
Yeah. Like I said, the CIT training is an amazing program that Northwestern has, because we get to impact our community through that program. We get to impact law enforcement who, give them resources for the folks they interact with, but for themselves. And I think that's they've been overlooked in that respect. So, the fact that we get to impact them, and they directly impact the quality of our clients and our community members' lives. And I think I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud to be part of the program, and the fact that, over 500. Now we're going to get some police officers that go through and, they're not feeling it on Friday. That's okay, because we've planted a seed, and they're going to have an interaction. They're going to go, oh, heck, what were those 4 plays they taught us? And, so I think that's everything with training. There's so much, and I can be such a chatty Cathy and go off on different tangents. So I want to make sure talking about our community stuff, and so you're with probation and parole.
So I work for juvenile probation, the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a great relationship with them when I worked at the Timbrook House, which is a pilot program in Winchester.
My husband actually works for Winchester PD.
Oh,
He doesn't work for them anymore. When the world kind of turned
Right.
upside down, he decided that his family was better than
who is he?
Matt Watson.
Oh,
there's 2 of them.
No, I know both of them.
Okay, the young Matt
It's
Watson.
Captain Watson, and then his brother. Is that your husband?
No,
Oh, you're,
they're not related.
oh,
No,
Oh.
he is, how old is he? 28, so he's a young one.
okay, so yeah, I am getting him confused with.
Yeah, a lot of people do. It's
But
okay.
I do know who he is, but you're right, because Captain Watson, who's with the sheriff's office, he has a brother too.
Yes.
And his name is Matt.
Yes, not my husband, but.
Right,
yes.
okay, all right, that makes sense. So, the reason why I brought that up too is that, we can come out to different, like training days and stuff like that. If you want to have this same sort of presentation to staff and stuff to educate them. One of the things that we do, and I do this in coordination with pre-screeners, is we try to go to roll calls just to say, hey, what's going on? Remind them about certain things, talk about CTAC. Is there any cases? Do you have any questions to continue to maintain, it's maintenance with those relationships. So I just want to throw that out there that we do stuff like that. I've been going to different dispatch ECCs and talking with them as well, so that, because we have, like I tell them, dispatchers, we're all a football team, right? They're the quarterback. And again, they kind of get, lost in the shuffle. So try to definitely reach out to them and remind them that they're part of the team, and remind law enforcement that they're part of the team as well, and they're the quarterback. Just to put a point on that. Okay, so any questions about CIT training or CIT in general?
So and you might bring this up, the CTAC, I know you have it in the Winchester Hospital. Do you have it at War Memorial as well?
No, and that was my next.
Oh,
Good, you did that perfect, that was a perfect segue. So CTAC is a grant funded program, and we applied for it in early 2018. We found out at CIT training in September that we were probably going to get it. And I had to run around really quickly. I mean, literally get in the car and run around here and get some signatures from just a few law enforcement office agencies, so that DBHDS would say, oh, okay, looks like they've got some stakeholders here. I ran upstairs to Sheriff Milholland's office. He signed it. Chief White was there, so he signed it. I drove over to Winchester PD. So that's how it came about. We officially got the grant in February of 2019. And it's a collaboration, I should say, with Valley Health, law enforcement. We have 18 signatures. So there's 18 different law enforcement agencies that utilize CTAC, and then Northwestern. And CTAC stands for Crisis Intervention Team Assessment Center. They're also known as Crisis Intervention Team Assessment Sites. So we got the funding for a site, and it is at Winchester Medical Center. Our first day was July 8th, and I don't think we had any clients there, but we are open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And it's just for ECOs. It's when an officer takes someone into custody, they can bring them to CTAC. We have 2 shifts. We have 11 to 5 and 5 to 11. So law enforcement, different agencies that have allowed their law enforcement officers to do extra duty, there'll be an officer there from 11 to 11. It could be 2 different officers because they'll split up the shift. So let's say it's Warren County, and they take somebody in on an ECO. The first thing they have to do by law is call Northwestern and let us know that they have an ECO. And at that time, they can say, hey, we're thinking about bringing them to CTAC. Is there a bed? We have 2 rooms. An officer can have 2 people in custody at a time. And we'll say yes. The next thing that officer has to do is talk to the CTAC officer and just kind of get a little conversation going. We're going to take everybody regardless, unless there's a significant medical issue. And then the hospital's probably going to, make that call. So the officer will bring them up. And at that time, a transfer of custody happens. There's paperwork that the officer fills out. The initiating officer, the officer taking custody completes the second part, and then that officer gets to leave and come back. So CTAC, the objectives and goals of CTAC are public safety, meaning that that officer gets to go back to their community and onto patrol. The second one is, client-centered care, because it's going to be a different interaction. We are all there for that one person or two people, and we're right there. So the process happens quickly. The grant says that a pre-screener, not only does law enforcement has to be there to take custody, a pre-screener has to be there to begin the process as quickly as possible. And I say that, but it never happens quickly as possible because there's medical stuff that has to go on. But the potential for it to happen within the first half hour, or 45 minutes increases. My grantor will remind me as well that a very important objective of CTAC is jail diversion. So one of the questions on my form is, was there, I can't think of the word now, but could you have taken this person to jail? And I need to know yes or no. And there's going to be a yes sometimes, but they made the decision to bring them to CTAC first because that's the priority. They can still get a warrant. We've had people leave CTAC and go to jail. We've had people get served, but we're going to take care of their mental health first. So that's a third objective as well, is jail diversion. Trying to think what else. Like I said, we take everybody, usually at 10 o'clock, they won't take any more because there's only an hour left. But pretty much, it's 11 to 11. We have monthly meetings with command staff so we can discuss CTAC, look at statistics. Our utilization has increased. It would be really nice if we could get more Shenandoah County and Page County to come up. But with the bed shortage, what is happening is, sure, it's a noon ECO and Blu-ray will bring somebody up. But if it's a TDO, they've got to come back up at the end. And it's very hard on, to switch them out and all of that. It's much easier to manage that at Page Memorial or Shenandoah Memorial. And, same with War Memorial. So before COVID, we were talking about expanding hours or having a second site. But of course, those discussions, we don't even have them anymore.
Yeah, COVID's put a damper on everything, I think.
Yeah. Plus, they're just moving in a different direction with allocations of funds and looking at 23 receiving centers, which would have CTAC at the front door, the transfer of custody. And then whatever the process might happen, whether it's voluntary or whatever, that person's going to stay in the 23 receiving center because TDOs would probably decrease because if there are substances on board and they clear up, or we can get some medication management, things like that, by that 23 hour and 59 minute, because that's what it is, the disposition could be totally different and they are diverted from the hospital. I asked, why 23 hours? Why not 24 hours? And I was informed that at 24 hours, it's no longer outpatient. It changes to inpatient, then everything else changes. So that's the direction that we're going in. Let's see if there's any other. The process too for law enforcement is they come through the ED and through triage because they have to do just some basic medical like blood pressure and temperature, ask some questions, and then they're processed pretty quickly and taken down to CTAC. And at that point, the other more, I guess I'll use the word invasive medical procedures happen, like taking blood and urine samples and stuff like that. But as I said, our utilization has increased. We have great partnerships with Valley Health and law enforcement supporting the program. The grant runs in perpetuity, so we should continue to get the money unless something happens like the funding changes and we are gifted with a 23 a 23-hour receiving center. That would be awesome. And the state's moving in that direction. So I foresee that happening in the next couple of years, and that's just going to be a bonus to our area. So I think I've covered everything. Do you have any other questions about CTAC?
How are your numbers lately? Are we getting utilization?
Yes.
Good.
We've had such a busy June. There was one day where there was 3, like as soon as one turned into a voluntary, Perry was able to take in another one. But the numbers have increased, which is that's definitely a good thing, because the ECOs are going to happen anyway.
In the summer usually.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yep.
higher. Mhm. Yeah.
Yep. So the numbers have been good. So.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
And we just, I believe I got an email from the CFO here that we were awarded our grant again, because now we have to resubmit, which we didn't have to do the first couple of years, but now they're asking all of us, which is nice because I get to send a summary too, to say, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Numbers are
Are
looking good. We send them, but Stephen gets so many,
Mhm.
so it's an opportunity for us to highlight the good things in our program. So, yeah.
Do you get more money if your utilization continues to go up from the state?
I don't think it's an automatic, but those are the programs they're going to look to consider receiving centers, I believe. That's my understanding.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I know with numbers up means we won't be absorbed into another program, because that could happen.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. to happen.
Regional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, that's good.
Yep. Yes, I think, like I said, I have this, and I didn't know, sometimes this is helpful. This is what I use when I go to law enforcement roll calls, just to remind about the ECO process. It talks about paper and paperless, but these are good to hand out to clients as well, or families or whatever. So I'm going to leave these here as well. It just talks about what the process is, how to get an ECO, and then what happens, what is it, what happens and stuff. So I'm going to leave those for you guys as well.
So like, if I could get into a training, like the 40-week or 40-hour week, how do you go about that?
Contact me.
Do you have a business card?
You know what? I don't have any business cards anymore,
She's on the.
but I'm on the email
email.
list. Yes.
Okay.
So I will tell you that all of our trainings are full.
I would like to do it too.
I know, I'd love for you to come. That would be so awesome.
But I don't have to, I could just observe. right?
Yes, you can come observe. Yep. Mhm.
To anyone?
Yep, to any one of them. And you know what, when you might want to think about coming to September's, because of drug court, mental health court, the state is telling judges they have to come through CIT. So we have a judge, our first judge
In
CIT
there.
in September in
Okay.
Middletown. So it is the 26th through the 30th. It's that week. But email me, and then I have a board where I keep names of people, and then I'll make sure I send you an email in January, and it has, by the end of January, I'll have my approval from DCJS, so it'll have, I always attach all of the registrations for all 5 trainings, and then you can look and see which one you want to go to and just send it in. We'd love to have you.
I tried to do it when I was at the jail, and it was just a cluster. So I never got to get through it. But.
And, we will have, I don't know if we'll be at NRADC or RSW next August, because the team gets together. We have like quarterly meetings. The other thing with CIT is I attend a regional CIT meeting every quarter. And I went to the state conference, when was it, May? And our region, Team West, got a shout out from the president of CIT. He said, our region, Team West, meets the most consistently, has the best communication, which I thought was really cool. So that's Lynchburg, Charlottesville, Waynesboro, Culpeper, Fredericksburg, just this whole HP1, Health Planning Region 1, right? Yeah. Is that so good?
Region 1.
Yeah. So that was very cool. So we have a great team and it's a great resource for me, you know. That's where I found out about
Yeah.
the guns, that we should implement those in our training, so.
Well, thank you, Donna.
Oh, you're
Thank you so much.
I love doing stuff like this. Can you tell?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
it's
doing
wonderful.
safety training too. I do less. I'm in the back. I'm like, you know, delegating, you know, trying to get us,
You're behind the scenes.
yes, yes. I'm the director back there. That's, yep, that's exactly right.
Well, and it's recorded too, so anybody who wants to, it has been recorded.
Oh,
I thought I heard
Yes,
it was recording. Okay, good.
Matt recorded it for us and they are working on the county website for me for the CSA office so that we'll have the brown bag trainings. Listed.
you'll have a catalog, like a
Yes, ma'am.
library.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And so-
What is your new email address so I can get rid of the old?
It's the same thing except .gov.
Okay, so
So
just
J Amara,
J,
AMANKRAH at Warren County, VA.
all written out,
Yes, ma'am.
VA.
.gov.
Did everybody change? The whole county,
The whole county is going to change. They're doing it in
little by little?
little by little. But I'll still get the .net stuff for up to a year.
Mhm.
The only time it causes a problem is if things are encrypted. So like stuff that comes through Barracuda. stuff
Oh,
that
yeah,
comes
yeah,
through
yeah, yeah.
Virtue,
Oh.
without having the .gov, it's a little more, takes a lot more effort to get into that. So trying to get everybody to switch to the .gov.
Okay. And did you get your part-time person?
I had an email that the budget was approved last night. So I haven't gotten a chance today to look through there, but as far as I know, I'm supposed to have a part-time person. But of course, that's not been advertised or.
Okay, so if we do